Yeah. Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order the Curriculum and Pupil Services Committee meeting of the School District of Haverford Township here on May 9th, 2024. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I thank everyone for their patience as our finance and facility meeting had some robust discussion, but we are ready now to dig in. So I will turn it over to Jen Saxa, our assistant superintendent, to walk us through the agenda.
Thanks so much, Mrs. Wiedemann. Well, we are excited to have we really only have one item on the agenda plus a few information items, but it is a fairly detailed presentation. So we're excited to have a lot of folks here to join in presenting. I thank them for that. We're going to start with the ELA audit results and then follow with the work that has been accomplished and some recommendations that are coming forward since we've received the audit results. And so here to share those results with us are some representatives from the Delaware County Intermediate Unit. I'd like to welcome to the microphone Mr. Mark Avidable. Are you guys starting first? Yep. Okay, great. Great. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. And I forgot to mention Rebecca is here as well. Sorry. And I think I have the clicker. Rebecca Smith.
Going good.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing Mark and I to present tonight on the results of the ELA curriculum audit. We're very excited to share the results with you, but first I'd just like to frame the evening in what is a program review, and that is a systematic process that is evaluating, in this case, the ELA curriculum for strengths, needs, and priority recommendations. So we're looking at both strengths and needs and considered a lot of the curriculum documents, but also I want to say thank you to the community as a whole who had a significant amount of input in their perspectives, including students, staff, and parents. So the program review is a snapshot of what your curriculum currently looks like. And at the end, it will provide some recommendations, which will be a roadmap forward. But I do want to highlight that it's not a judgment zone. We're systematically looking for strengths and needs. We're not placing any value judgment on anything we heard from anybody, and it's not about any individual practices that anybody is doing. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mark, who's going to provide you some information on the research framework that we use for an ELA curriculum review.
So to conduct the program review, we use three main frameworks: the rigorous curriculum design, understanding by design, and structured literacy. And in particular, structured literacy with a focus on the competency components. For the rigorous curriculum framework, it really aligns components that are organized in units of study and ensures that all students achieve the desired end. Specifically, during the review, we use this framework to help our team look at learning outcomes and how they were built both vertically and horizontally across the curriculum to attain what was identified as the determined grade or course specific standards. Other framework that we use is backwards design, which is modeled through McTighe and Wiggins' understanding by design, and really provides a structure for organizing and creating curriculum. The backwards design process starts first with identifying the desired results, what students should be able to do and what they should know. And that is stage one. The next part is really determining how are we going to assess that students have gotten to this point of, what it is that they're to know and to be able to do. And that's stage two. The last stage, stage three, is when the planning, the instruction comes into play and the learning experiences. And in particular, this framework was used to review how the current curriculum was organized and how it was structured and designed. The third and very important framework that we use was structured literacy and its components of phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, comprehension, and writing. This lens really applied to see how the curriculum itself enabled opportunities to engage in literacy instruction that was systematic, sequential, and evidence-based. In order to organize our the trends and the analysis that we had conducted going through the audit and the information and the data, we used that backwards design framework as a way to really organize what we're seeing as strengths and needs. So you can see that organized by stage 1, which again is those desired results, stage 2, which is the evidence, how assessments are used, and then stage 3, how this then leads to what is planned within the classroom in terms of instruction. So for stage 1, the desired results, again, this is looking at what students are able to know, what they're able to do as aligned with priority standards and how that builds within the scope and sequence. So some of the strengths that we saw in stage 1 desired results was that the curriculum was standards aligned. It was clear that there were standards present within the horizontal and vertically scoped curriculum. There are pacing guides that existed with particularly elevated in grades 3 and 5, and that came up time and time again is students felt prepared for their current grade level based on their previous experiences in the year prior. In terms of needs that started to stand out as we looked in the desired results focus, curriculum programs were used, these words itself were used interchangeably rather than curriculum existing as a separate guiding light to determine what then resources would be used. The other piece that started to stand out is that the complexity of the curriculum pacing, it varied by grade level. Similar to this, the alignment across buildings at elementary levels varied across them. In particular, looking at the transitions and what other pieces could be added in to help with alignment as students transition from 5th to 6th and then 8th to 9th. And the last area of focus within the desired results, the outcomes for students is focused on writing and how writing was articulated across the curriculum, both in scope and specificity. For stage 2, I'm going to turn back to Rebecca.
Thank you. And as that UBD framework states, stage 2 is about evidence. So how do we know students are learning what we say they should be able to know and do, as we did in stage 1? So strengths of assessment practices in the ELA curriculum are that a majority of students are meeting their grade level benchmarks across the board. At least 75% of students are meeting their grade level benchmarks when administered. So this really signifies a robust alignment between student learning and student performance. Next strength is that there's a lot of feedback at the secondary level that student learning does align with the assessments that they are given. Well over 90% of students said that their assessments typically align to what they learned in class. And especially at the high school teacher level, there is a strong positive perception about the role of assessment at the high school. Another highlight is that it was noted that there's a lot of good work being done around common assessments and that everything around assessments is moving in the right direction. Some needs highlighted is the alignment between assessment and learning at the elementary level. There was some feeling that some of the programs are not aligned to what the report card is measuring. Additionally, Study Island at the middle school, there's some highlights between the difference of practice and the actual assessment. So the number of passages students read, the number of questions students are practicing responding to is different than what they actually see on the final assessment. And while it was noted across the board that there's some good work with the Modern Assessment Committee, that this is new work, and so a need highlighted around just continued work around this emerging nature of assessments that are looking at collaboration skills, communication skills, critical thinking skills, just skills across the board that will be really important for students when they are older. and that there's good work happening, but a lot more to be done as this is new work. And students across the board did highlight that what they believe is most effective for assessments are those opportunities for more collaborative work aligned to real-world authentic experiences. Stage 3 is really about all of the resources, practices that support everything outlined in assessment and curriculum documents. And the big strength here is that everybody felt across the board that there is a strong, comprehensive array of resources that are available to support teachers in that implementation of the curriculum and assessment. There were a lot of strengths highlighted in that structured literacy piece related to K2 phonics instruction and phonemic awareness. Specifically with foundations instruction, there was a strong feeling that phonics is a highly evident component of structured literacy here at Haverford. And at the secondary level, there was a lot of discussion around comprehension being a really strong skill that's supported here. Some needs that emerged were some structure and support around the programs and resources. So big strength that there's a lot of programs and resources to support students. And just to highlight that sometimes it's hard to navigate that many resources effectively or easily. And that has resulted in a lot of supplementation of the curriculum materials. It can just feel overwhelming to navigate all of that. While phonics was highlighted as an elementary structured literacy component that is doing really well here, there were some components that were highlighted as in need of a little bit more intentional support within the curriculum, those being phonological awareness, fluency, writing, and specifically at the secondary level of vocabulary. There is a vocabulary here at the secondary level. It is online and self-paced, and much of the research in structured literacy is pointing towards an explicitly taught vocabulary where students use those words in daily learning life with their peers. So all of that led to some overarching recommendations. The first is to clearly define and articulate those priority standards. So it's great that the curriculum here is already Pennsylvania standards based, and the work in the recommendation is to prioritize the most important of those standards. To build upon the work of those pacing guides that Mark spoke about, to establish a really clear curriculum framework that is vertically outlined K to 12, to incorporate some of that explicit vocabulary instruction in 6 to 12, increase clarity in the writing curriculum. So it was a strong highlight that the reading curriculum is very clearly outlined, and it would be a great opportunity to outline in the same specificity the writing expectations. To build on support for diverse learning needs, so build in opportunities to support students within the curriculum, both above grade level and below grade level, and have that outlined in the curriculum so teachers are also supported in what strategies might be effective for those lessons. And to continue enhancing book and reading selection for student engagement. So there is some choice already here in the curriculum for student reading, and to continue to incorporate those opportunities for students to choose the books they read in some cases, and making sure that when those choices are outlined in the curriculum that they tie back to those priority standards in recommendation 1. And that is our overview of the curriculum audit. Mark and I would be happy to answer any questions.
As people might be thinking of questions, I would like to extend my thanks to you both, as well as your team for the many hours that you put into not only designing the questions for the focus groups and working with us and collaborating on the surveys, but reviewing, and Sandy will share a little bit later, just the thousands of pages of documents that we sent over, and you're reviewing that along with rubrics for structured literacy, and just providing some research for us to look at along the way. We just want to share our thanks to you for being a partner in this work and recognize all of the many hours and work that you put into this, so thank you.
Thank you. It was truly a pleasure to work with you and Sandy and all of the teachers who participated throughout the process.
I also just wanted to elevate the fact that this was not just you and your team from DCIU telling us what needs to be done, what needs to be fixed, doing the evaluation and analysis completely on your own. I really appreciate that our teachers here locally were involved in the process, that families were consulted, that staff were consulted, so that we can have more stakeholder buy-in around recommendations and next steps.
Absolutely, thank you. There were over 3,400 people who participated in surveys.
I have a question. On page 19, I believe, you had a stat there between 44% and 56% of students feel the ELA curriculum is just right. I'm just curious, I assume that differentiates between different schools, which is why there's such a wide kind of range there?
It was differentiated between level, basically, elementary, 3rd through 5th, middle school level and high school level.
Okay, is there a way to get breakdowns of that? I don't know if you have that.
Let me find the right page again for you, and I will absolutely let you know. So it is 55.9% in grades 3 to 5, 44.1% in grades 6 to 8, and 46.7% in grades 9 to 12.
Okay, and of the ones who didn't fall into that category, would the majority of them feel too slow, too fast? Was it kind of equal?
There is some split between it's too hard, it's too easy, and it's too boring.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a question thinking about the needs. I know on stage 3, I believe slide 19, there's a call out there for support for diverse learning needs. What were some discussions or I guess broad themes that emerged thinking about English learners, students with IEPs?
Thank you. I think I might have visually skipped over that bullet point, so thank you for bringing up that question. The discussion at that point of need is about incorporating specific ways in the curriculum for supporting students both above and below grade level. So there was discussion about supporting students who may need a little extra help, and also at the same time making sure that you're able to enhance instruction or extend instruction for students who are just really naturally picking up everything and might need a bit more of a challenge. This came across at a lot of the focus groups, but it was also the lowest probed question in the staff survey. We asked 2 questions about differentiation, and they were the lowest across the board. So did emerge as a big need, so thank you for asking that.
I have a question regarding stage 1, the desired results, the need slide. That's slide 13. So I see there's a bullet point that talks about the alignment across buildings, vertically and horizontally. And so I want to make sure that I'm understanding the slide as it's presented. So vertically, we're looking at that transition from 5th to 6th, then 8th to 9th. Horizontally across elementary buildings, and that makes sense as it's written, but I'm wondering are we still seeing, are we finding that once students have acclimated into the middle school, that the differences that we might have seen or misalignment that we might have seen kind of levels out? Or does that carry through and add on to that vertical transition from 8th to 9th?
So I do not want to imply any causality in any of it, because we did talk to people at different levels about their experiences at those levels. So what I would highlight there about horizontally across elementary buildings is just that there is seeming to be some differences in how resources are being used across different elementary buildings. Some teachers leaning more into readers theater versus others, or different programs that might be available a little bit more, which ties back to the feedback about there's so many programs and resources, and we're looking for support in how we might use these. And then combined with the feedback that going from 5th to 6th can be very hard, but we did not ask 8th to 9th graders about whether they thought that kind of leveled out or not by the time they got there.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, is this a focus more on like tier 1 core instruction, or is there also looking at like tier 2, tier 3 supports around ELA?
Our primary focus of this was tier 1 core curriculum instruction. We did look at what programs are available to support students and other resources, but by and large, we were looking at tier 1 here.
And that's where it starts. You want to have solid tier 1. So.
Right.
Is that a question about how we're going to implement the findings of the audit? I don't know if it would be.
It's a good transition.
If we are ready for a transition, that will be the next portion of the presentation that Sandy will do, but I don't want to rush anybody if there are any other questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you both. I know that you also had some other obligations this evening, so we thank you for your time and will not be offended if you have to move on to those other obligations at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I also wanted to just thank Sarah Christensen for coming from the DCIU. She may be a familiar face. Oh, thanks, Mark. We appreciate your support and the support of the DCIU. Great. And up next, Sandy Connolly will be sharing, we're calling it a humanities curriculum update because she does also have some information about library, but the primary portion of the presentation will be answering Dr. Shelton's question, which is really, what are we doing now with the information and what are our plans to move forward with the information? Thank you, Sandy. I believe your names are only there to make sure everyone gets one, not that you have a quiz or anything to do with it. Yes, yes, it's only.
Yeah, it looks like a test.
Refer to it in a few minutes, so,
Did the clicker go somewhere?
Thank you all for having me back. I'm Sandy Connolly. I'm the Humanities Curriculum Supervisor for K-12. And tonight I'm really excited to talk to you about what's been going on at ELA, because we have been a busy, busy place. We have a lot of people here who want to tell you some things about that. So we're going to talk about, you've just heard the audit, which is great. So we'll go through this next slide pretty quickly. And this, we also have some development recommendations that we want to share with you. So this is the elementary portion of the presentation. And we had just talked about all the documents that they reviewed. This is the list of things we gave them. So for K through 12, for every unit, for every school, for every area, this is the types of materials, they were thousands of documents that we sent them, the 38 focus groups and 3,449 survey responses. A lot of input went into that audit. And that really, I think, has so much to say about all the people who are willing to participate in all of those and all the principals who gave us time to be able to meet with our different groups. But at the same time, the curriculum office was really busy because I couldn't just sit there and wait while the audit was happening. I needed to be looking out and seeing, because we had some indication that there were going to be, some suggestions for some revisions. So while the DCIU was conducting the audit and we were busy looking at our resource options, we reviewed ed reports, and you can see those two little green buttons at the top. That's what it looks like if you get a double green for recognition in the two areas of alignment and knowledge that they measure. And we also looked at the different programs and resources that were recommended by the Knowledge Matters campaign. We reached out to other districts, both those that were high performing and high growth, to ask them what resources they were using. I interviewed 20 curriculum directors and supervisors to learn about what they were using and how it was going. We read books, listened to podcasts, read articles to learn the research. The curriculum department, so at this point it's really just in our office, narrowed down the list from 3 to 3 programs from the original 5 that we were looking at. So then we ended up with these 3 programs: CKLA, EL Education, and Wit and Wisdom. As the audit concluded, we decided we needed a teacher team. And so here you go. In elementary, every teacher who was interested was allowed to participate, and actually was most likely paid for their time, because by this time we had used up most of their flex. So some teachers still wanted flex, but We actually paid all those elementary teachers and secondary teachers to participate, and anyone was allowed to join. This team represents all schools, all grades, and those from general and special education. The committee began to work at the end of February and met once a month. Along the way, I've worked really closely with Dr. Natalia Edalizzi to ensure that we would choose a resource that would benefit all of our students. And you can see all the administrators that were involved. There's just a lot of people. We will talk about secondary later, but we're going to continue with elementary now. The committee and many of our teachers and administrators read and listened to a lot of research, including Shifting the Balance. There were 2 different books they could read on that, depending on their level. The Knowledge Matters podcast, the Knowledge Matters book, and the baseball study. So the baseball study is linked in here if you want to listen to it later. It's only a couple of minutes long, but I'll tell you what it says. This baseball study sums up the research behind one of the changes the research recommended we make. In this study, 4 groups of students were tested on reading comprehension on a text about baseball. And there's also a similar one on cricket, which if you don't know anything about cricket, you would find yourself in the same situations these students did. Unsurprisingly, and this is the graph on the right, the students with high reading ability and high knowledge of baseball performed as expected on a standardized reading test. They performed high. However, students with high knowledge of baseball and low reading ability outperformed the students with high reading ability and a low knowledge of baseball on the same standardized reading test. This means that the knowledge of the topic had a much bigger impact than reading ability, and that with sufficient prior knowledge, students with low reading ability can perform similarly to students with high reading ability. Let me just repeat that. Students with low reading ability can perform similarly to the students with high reading ability if they have enough background knowledge. This is just some of the research to support using a knowledge-building curriculum, which each of the resources we were considering were. We were only looking at knowledge-building curriculum. So between February 23rd is when we started our road show, and February 29th is when the audit, the DCIU presented the audit recommendations and actions to the committee. So between February and April, the team worked really hard. The curriculum material circulated to all the buildings on what we called a resource roadshow. And if you'll remember back 6 years ago, we did it then too. Teachers and administrators visited, so when the roadshow comes, that means that you're getting the curriculum materials and you have a couple of days to read through the manuals, look at the books, and later you may also do that. I only brought one manual, but all the books, some of the books, a sampling of the books that will be in the curriculum we're going to talk about are behind you. Teachers and administrators visited classrooms in Cumberland Valley, 4 schools in North Penn, and another school in Ridley Township. The team used the rubric we had developed to perform a quantitative evaluation of the resources and then voted for a recommendation for the best new curriculum resource. So 29 teachers went visiting, and you know how hard that is because we have a hard time covering classrooms without subs. So it was a big deal that the principals allowed us to take, in one day we took 21 teachers to North Penn and visited 4 schools. Lots of classrooms. And so the teachers on the committee had the opportunity, some of them had the opportunity to see this in action. So here is the team in action doing the quantitative rubric. And in front of you, that rubric you have is the evaluation of resources that they used. I want to introduce for you Erin Smith-Dels. She's our lead teacher, and she's going to tell you a little bit about what the data show.
Good evening. We developed our evaluation tool using the original rubric from the last audit cycle, with additions from trusted organizations such as the Reading League and the Knowledge Matters campaign, and adding on our own characteristics for inclusion, equity, and diversity from our Haverford textbook adoption rubric. The resulting evaluation tool examined 12 different categories with over 50 considerations. As Sandy mentioned, over 40 teachers worked in teams to complete 21 of these rubrics. Looking for specific elements, such as critical thinking questions are built in, or explicit vocabulary is taught in the context of reading, teachers marked whether they found these elements as present or not present. From there, I took their notes, counted their tally marks, and distilled the results into this chart. As you can see, Wit and Wisdom had a few standout areas in comparison to the two other programs. Scoring high in writing to build knowledge and grammar, effectively using oral language to build knowledge, and organization and ease of implementation. In total, Wit and Wisdom scored a total of 264 points out of a possible 307 points, while the other two programs both hovered around 180 points. From there, we asked teachers on the committee to vote. Thank you.
So teachers were given the time they needed during that review process. They were sitting around and said, "Are you ready to vote?" And they didn't look quite ready to vote. So I said, "Okay, continue looking at the materials, continue talking to each other, right? What do we need to do to find out how you're going to vote, what you're going to vote for?" And nobody could believe this, but while they were voting, I was sharing my screen, so I couldn't see what was happening as they were voting. So I said, "Are you ready to reveal it?" And I revealed it to them at the same time I saw this. And this is what I saw. And it was not what I expected. I expected that there would be more diversity in their choices. And I had to look closely to see what was yellow or orange, and it was a Wit and Wisdom. It had received 100% of the 40 votes. It was the clear choice by the teachers. The other wheel demonstrates how evenly distributed the results were across all the grade levels. Although the 5 administrators present were not asked to vote so as not to skew the results, they all said that Wit and Wisdom was their clear choice as well. So between that vote and, which was not really surprising when you looked at the tallies of all the numbers from the rubrics that they had been, using. So now I'm going to show you, this is some samples, comments from teachers, and I have some teachers in the room who wanted to come and tell you what they thought about Wit and Wisdom and why they voted for it. So teachers, come on up, and they promise they'll be brief. I'm going to let them introduce themselves because there's a few of them.
They're allowed to take as much time as they want. We're thrilled to have them here.
Hi, I'm Haley Peachin. I'm a second grade teacher at Manoa, and I chose Wit and Wisdom because I thought there was a lot of active learning activities throughout the program. I also thought there were a lot of student engagement activities, such as student discussions, that provided them the student-centered role for them to have active communications with their classmates and also for them to learn from their peers, and I thought that this was really beneficial for them.
My name is Nicole Dolsky. I'm a learning support teacher at Coopertown. And I voted for Wit and Wisdom for several reasons, but the primary reason is that it helps students build knowledge. And it really helps all students build knowledge. And as a special educator, I really see the benefit of leveraging literacy instruction to support overall knowledge development, particularly in the areas of science and social studies. This provides access to high quality materials and instructions for everybody. And further, I believe that Wit and Wisdom supports the district's goals, particularly preparing contemporary citizens through these rich knowledge building instructional experiences. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lisa McCusker. I teach second grade at Chestnut Wild Elementary School. As we've heard this evening, we know that Wit and Wisdom is a knowledge-building curriculum that integrates the reading and the writing connection while building vocabulary and background knowledge. The module topics, particularly in second grade, where I had interest, are highly engaging, and the literature providing is robust, and the vocabulary and the content is all there. What stood out to me most of all with Wit and Wisdom is the fact that it directly connects and aligns to two programs that we're already seeing success with, Foundations and Geodes. So the Foundations is the phonics piece, and we are shoring up our instruction there. We've already seen success. This year, I've had the opportunity to work with the Geodes books in small groups, in my MTSS groups. And these books are sort of the bridge that connects the phonics knowledge and the content that Wit and Wisdom provides in all of their modules. So that bridge between foundations and the Geodes and the Wit and Wisdom content really are all of the puzzle pieces that I think we need at Haverford to help us move to a structured literacy environment in our language arts curriculum. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Randy West. I teach fourth grade at Manoa. I voted for Wit and Wisdom because of its focus on connecting reading and writing directly with authentic text to enhance comprehension and critical thinking skills. Observing several classes had bolstered my confidence in this decision. Seeing firsthand how students actively engage with Wit and Wisdom solidifies its effectiveness in fostering meaningful learning experiences. Thank you.
Come on up. We also have a principal here who had something she'd like to share. You know Dr. Renee Mosser?
Hi, good evening. It's so nice to be with you again. One thing, I want to piggyback what Lisa was saying, because what we really can do well is our phonics program, our foundations, teaches that decoding that students need. And once they crack that code, we move and we use that along with our geodes, which takes that code and starts to build fluency and builds some background knowledge. And then we bring in Wit and Wisdom that really kind of glues it all together. So when I was in the classroom and I was watching it firsthand, I couldn't tell what students were special ed, what students were EL students. I knew there were some special ed students because I saw multiple adults in the room, but all of the students were diving into the information together. They were all able to look at a piece of artwork and speak about that artwork because there's a lot of language in Wit and Wisdom. So when I think about like what really stood out to me is four things. Number one, what teachers want most of: time. This opportunity extends a theme for an extended period of time, so things don't start and stop. So with time, teachers can explore creativity in their instruction. So what we see is they transform the hallways into tropical rainforests, or they're making a campfire to share their reading. Then with that creativity comes the connection. There's a lot of cross-curricular connections where they're using artwork or music. They're reading from different points of view. They're listening to reading. So there's so many modalities to build this background. And finally, it builds an equitable classroom where all students are included and they can all jump into the information from their learning point and still be successful. And I think that's the key that we're missing. It's that little tweak with this Wit and Wisdom program could really see our students not only grow, but also start achieving at higher rates. So super excited from an administrator's perspective and can't wait to see if we are able to spearhead, because I'm so excited to walk this path with our students. So thank you for your time, and thank you to Mrs. Conley, who has spent so many hours just putting this all together. So that would be a downfall if I didn't highlight her in this process. So thank you.
Thank you all for sharing, and you can go if you want to, or stay and hear the rest of this great presentation. Okay, so I just want to show you a little bit more about this program, Wit and Wisdom, that they all voted for. These are the modules that are in Wit and Wisdom. With our current curriculum, the supplemental programs we added felt as though we were putting together puzzle pieces to create a whole program that would address the top half of Scarborough's reading rope, which is the language and comprehension area. And that is something that the auditors found was a problem, right? They talked about the variety of resources and that everybody was trying to manage them and they were managing them in different ways. This will be a resource that will guide us through that. We'll be streamlining and replacing the comprehension, vocabulary, grammar resources that we had with one resource. And as I said, these are the modules that we'll go through. As we have half-day kindergarten, teachers will develop their curriculum. Now we're talking the difference between the curriculum and the program. We're getting better at that language. Kindergarten will develop their curriculum using some of this, the read alouds, but we don't have the 90 minutes in kindergarten because we have a half day, which is fine. So we'll use some of this, and we'll use the geodes that they have been using. And so we're going to talk about geodes as a core resource for them so that they can design what their units will look like. What we're planning for grades 1 through 5 is that we'll follow the recommendation from all of the teachers to implement the first, and this recommendation has come from everyone we've talked to who have already implemented it, and there are a lot of school districts in the area that have been implementing this more recently. The first 3 modules, there are 4, but because doing this knowledge building, teaching and writing will be a different way of teaching than we've been teaching, it may take us a little bit longer. So we think the first year, we're going to take our time, we're going to do it well, and we're going to do the first 3 modules if the board adopts and approves this curriculum resource, as that has been what's been recommended. You'll see here a list of text and in a few cases, alternate text, which some districts have chosen to use based on their community's needs. So groups of teachers in the curriculum department will be reviewing the text, and I've been reading as many as I can read a day. Erin and I are reading them. I'm listening to them on my long commute. I'm doing really well. I'm getting my novels done on my commute, which is great. So we can determine which will be included in our core curriculum from this list of resources. These books will be used in various ways, through read alouds, through paired text, small group reading. There's also a volume of reading list, which will be supplemental and additional. It'll be optional for parents, for teachers to use to have more reading opportunities in the classroom to build knowledge around the module topics. So I just want to show you each page here is a different grade level, so you can see the list of titles. In some cases, there's an image there as well. There are some familiar titles on here that you'll see. And as I said, they're also on for the board members behind you on the windowsills if you want to take a look at the ones I was able to pull from our libraries. Texts in kindergarten, first and second, are read to students to build critical thinking skills and comprehension. Students will have the opportunities to read text on their reading level through geodes. Some of the books, like Green Eggs and Ham, they can probably read, but then some of them may be too complicated and they are read to the students. Many of these texts may look familiar as well. Students read a variety of texts around a topic to build the bank of knowledge, which you've heard from the teachers. The texts are supported by art, film clips, music, poetry, and photographs, just to name a few.
Just one question. When we're looking at this list, there's some that are shaded and some that have asterisks. Are those significant designations on these
You know
lists?
what? I don't know what the designation is, but I'll certainly find out. I don't know what the difference is between the shading and the asterisks. Do you know, Erin?
I think it might be a read aloud versus some books are 1 to 3 students, some books are every student gets one, but I think the shaded one, I think that might be it.
Okay, so some of these books, as I said, they may be read aloud, they may be paired text, they may be small group text. So when we purchase these, we'll not purchase necessarily 520 copies of every single one of these books, which is probably good for teachers because I don't think you have bookshelves that big. But, there will be some that will be read aloud, and then there are many that will be one-to-one.
So just
Yep.
another question.
Sure.
I see at the bottom of the list, it gives the rubric, like the square and the asterisk.
Oh, on the
indicates
bottom of the
form.
rubric it did, okay. There you
Yep,
go.
and so, looks like some of these books are awarded some sort of honor and others are considered informative text.
There you go. And they're Caldecott winners. They're all kinds of different honors that they have earned as well. For students to progress to higher levels of comprehension, they must engage in joyful challenge of reading grade appropriate complex text. And that's one of the things that our teachers had commented on. They wanted real books. They wanted authentic books that could go, and parents even want that, where they can go get them out of the library or the bookstore. My child loved that book. Is there another one written by the same author or in the series? That's what this will provide them, is the opportunity for that. They wanted to have the novels as well. We have teachers saying, we want to teach more novels. Well, now they'll have lots of novels. And that's engaging for students, and it really captures their interest. It also gives them some shared knowledge from which to write about, which we found is really important. When we ask students to write about, I don't think we do this anymore, asking them to write about their summer vacation, but we might ask them to write about, did you ever go to the shore? And if they've never been to the shore, even though it's only an hour away, they don't have that experience. But if we all read books on sea creatures, we could write something about sea creatures, because now we all have that knowledge. So it's much more equitable. It is also built with increasing rigor and scaffolds for students. So this vertical alignment between, as a grade, will continue to build in rigor. And one of the recommendations from the audit report that you just heard was the writing clarity. And one of the problems that they said, had told us when we met with them was, it says in every grade level you're writing a narrative text, but we don't see how that narrative text becomes more rigorous or how the skills build. In this, it is very, very clear how the skills are building throughout the grade level and then across grade levels to vertically to the next grade level. The productive struggle may be new to some of our students and our teachers because we've been teaching them with level text, which are on their level. So this productive struggle will be new to some of us. But the teachers are going to be there to support them along the way, and we're going to be there to support the teachers. And before I go on to talk about geodes, I just wanted to say, because I don't think I have a slide on this, we have already started to plan out the professional learning opportunities for teachers so that they will be supported along the way with as much professional development as we can provide that comes from wit and wisdom, not just Erin and me trying to be the experts, which we are not yet. So that is a plan that is we are putting into place so that if we get the go-ahead from you all, we'll be able to go ahead and implement that plan with the company.
Can I ask a clarifying
Sure.
question? I think I missed
Sure.
this question as we were going along. So what do we currently use foundations and geodes? Did we have a third program that we're trying to replace,
Yeah.
or we didn't have a third program?
To shorten this, I took that slide out, but I'll tell you what it was on
Okay.
it. So we have benchmark literacy, which is our shared, so we have been using a balanced literacy curriculum, which everybody has been using for the last 25 years. And what is different now is we're going to a knowledge building curriculum. And I did send you a comparison between balanced literacy and knowledge building so you'd see what that comparison is. I can send that to you again if you can't find that. But that is something that you received in some communication. So the difference is, what we have been doing is, you might read shared reading, a large read aloud something on pyramids. Then you go to your guided reading group, and I have 5 different guided reading groups in my classroom. I try to see each of them twice a week. I have a different lesson plan for every single one of them. They all have a different book, and it might be about insects, it might be about mummies, it might be about hurricanes. Nothing to do with pyramids. Then the child does independent reading. Well, they want to read Captain Underpants, which has nothing to do with any of those things we've just talked about. And then they write. We have a different period in our day, which is writing, and now we're going to do a narrative writing, and it is about exploding a moment, a personal experience that I've had, which the teacher doesn't know anything about, so they can't really help support the student, because it's not a shared experience. And everybody's writing about something different, and the teacher is trying to teach grammar, conventions, how to write a paragraph, how to write a narrative, and it's a real challenge. So whereas this is going to be a big shift for teachers, I do think that once we get over understanding how the manual is set up, they'll have one manual. They won't be also going to Patterns of Power, which we've been using as a supplementary resource for grammar instruction. They won't be going in 4th and 5th grade to the vocabulary workshop book to teach vocabulary, which has nothing to do with any of the other things they read all day. So it's going to be more streamlined, it's going to be more focused, and it's going to be around the content topic, and they will stay with that for 36 lessons, which may be 36 days. It might be a little longer because we're not used to teaching the lessons yet, so it might be 40 days, right? So you're going to be on a content, but they're going to be reading lots of things. They're going to see art and film clips and poetry, all different genres around that. And the other thing that's really great is the benchmark literacy small guided reading books that we've had, we're already figuring out which ones match the creature feature unit. So those teachers will have those in their classroom to support if kids want to read more, if teachers want to have a small group and read with kids on a topic. They'll have more of those content topic books in their classroom to help support this content. So benchmark literacy, we won't be using that, but we're going to keep the small books because we think they can support this. There's not bad books, right? It's just we don't need the teacher's manuals. Patterns of power, we'll keep on the shelf in case we find after doing this for a while, we need some more grammar instruction. We could add that in, but we're not going to do that right away. Vocabulary workshop, we won't order those workbooks. And so we're going to streamline things for teachers a little bit. Does that answer your question?
It does, and I appreciate because it helps me understand some of the comments that the teachers had made about the inclusivity of the classroom, that it allows for students who are at many different levels to be able to be learning the same content and be able to dialogue with one another in a way that it does not sound like that was existing before, so.
No. And also, we are adjusting the schedules so that, and that's where I'm working really closely with Dr. Edalizzi, is to get the teachers to be able to push in to support students rather than pulling them out and teaching the benchmark literacy in a different room. They can stay in the room, the teacher will push in and will support kids in the room so that they get the support they need and can keep going. But they'll have the discussions with their peers, right? Okay. So you've heard a lot about geodes tonight. We're just going to talk a little bit about that. We have been using it as a supplemental resource, and we purchased geodes because it was content rich and because it is aligned to foundations. And it is 80% decodable. So it allows students to be able to apply the decoding skills that they've learned in class, which is great because that wasn't necessarily happening in the books they were reading. So geodes fit that bill. What we found now is we really want to make sure that they're available for all students to have the opportunity to use, which is why we're asking for them to be adopted as a core resource. They've been supplemental. We're going to get more of them if this is approved so that we can have more children have the access to them. Teachers have been sharing them. They've been trying to figure out how to use them. We're going to have some real training and let them know how to use them. In first grade, students will read geodes with varying levels of support. So if you're a pretty good reader, maybe you and your peers will read through geodes and will be checking your fluency and checking your reading ability. Like, yep, you've got this, you understand this, great, you can go do something else. And then some students who need more support will now have a book that is 80% decodable, and they'll be able to work through that a little bit with more support from their teacher. Okay. So here are the geodes books. I want you to get a chance to see the titles. Now, these books are not authentic trade books. These are ones that have been developed by Great Minds, the same company as Wit and Wisdom, with a controlled vocabulary. So the words in these books, that's how you get an 80% readable text, is somebody has to make it up and get rid of the words that are, not decodable. But what the teachers, they really like the topics, and they found the kids thought they were really, really interesting. So we already know from children that they like the topics that they're going to be having in Wit and Wisdom in K through 2 because they've already been reading the geodes that are also aligned. So all Wit and Wisdom and geodes will dovetail together. Here are the second grade geodes. All right. The Curriculum Audit and Development Committee respectfully recommends that the board adopt Wit and Wisdom as our core curriculum resource for grades K through 5 and geodes as a core resource for grades K through 2. We are planning to implement Wit and Wisdom modules 1 through 3 in the first year and expand to the 4th module as it's determined that teachers and students are able. Teams of teachers will review the modules to ensure that all grade level standards are addressed. We believe that these resources will complete what is needed to provide our students with a comprehensive elementary English language arts education. And that's the end of elementary. So if there's anything else about elementary you want to know, now's a good time.
Okay, so I had a question for you. It
Sure.
sounds wonderful. I just had one of my big questions now is, what percentage of Wit and Wisdom, what percentage of that new curriculum is online? Is there anything, I loved that you said the kids are getting actual books, like that sold me right there. Is everything actual paper?
Right now, it's 100% paper.
I probably don't have any more questions after that, because you sold me with that.
They're all books and they're all paper. And that is
That is
now the
awesome.
students or the, parents, if they wanted to read the book again, or if the child was sick, we found YouTube links to most of these books online. So if a child was not in the classroom and we read, whatever the book is, we could send them the link to the YouTube video, which is out in the world. But that's not how we will be teaching unless we have a pandemic.
That is awesome, because that's one of my issues with the elementary math curriculum.
Sure.
And what you said, it's so true. Kids want a book, they like to hold a book, they like to go to the library and get books, or, for my son, who's not even a reader like my older boys were, he just loves getting a gift card to Barnes and Noble. Like, it's exciting to get a book. And so I think that's great. And, I love what you said, if there's a series, because kids love, I know all of my boys loved a series. If you can get them in, hook them into reading, I love that. So that's great. I had a couple other questions. You said something also that I found interesting and that I agreed with. You said, so the vocabulary instruction that they currently have in 4th and 5th grade at the elementary level, it's different than what my older boys had. But what you said, it's very disjointed from the curriculum. I've looked at the book. I think it's an excellent book.
Resource, yeah.
It's an excellent book, but part of it, without requiring homework, I don't think they have a lot of success in it, but also it has nothing to, the other part of the issue, and I know I have some friends whose children in 4th grade with my son who are teachers, it's not tied into the curriculum. So it's like a double whammy. You're not bringing stuff home to write sentences or study it with your parents, but then you're also not, it's just this isolated, oh, okay, we're doing our 15 minutes of vocabulary in our ELA class, and then you put the book away, and no matter how good the book is, if you're not using those words at school or at home, and they're challenging words for sure. I think they're great words. Is there a vocabulary unit? Oh, that's awesome.
So there's, what we really loved about this was, as we go through the manual and we're getting to know them better, I brought a 3rd grade one you can look at.
Oh, I love that.
You can see a vocabulary page, and they teach the vocabulary, and then they use the vocabulary, and they're supposed to then use it in their writing as well. Same thing with grammar. It is very much, it grows throughout and sequential throughout the writing. So it's not where we're saying to teachers, try to teach this patterns of power grammar lesson here, and then, then use it in your writing. It's actually right on there, and it's in the rubric to assess the student's writing. So I'm thinking that the middle school is going to be happier with what's coming out from our writing, because there will be an expectation of what.
Well, and that, this is like the best presentation ever, because it has everything that I could ever have wanted for you to say. No online component, the vocab is tied, because I love vocabulary instruction, and as good as the book is now, it's almost, I hate to say worthless, because it's just not tied in at home or at school, and that you're requiring it to be in the writing. That's awesome. I was going to ask, but you just kind of touched on that grammar. So there is a grammar.
Yep.
Oh my God, this is great. Because I'm so excited, because, talking to teachers at our middle school and the high school, the quality of writing that they're saying they're seeing. We can't blame COVID on everything, and I know every child is different, but I could give you a sample of each one of my 3 boys at 4th grade, all at Linwood, and you would know who's in 4th grade now, because it's just, I think the writing quality has gone down. I've seen that as a parent, and it's not just, I know kids are different, but the teachers are telling me what they're seeing coming in the secondary level of our schools. The grammar's not there, the vocab, the writing structure, and I love that they're going to be teaching writing, because that helps then our teachers to really hone their craft at the secondary level in middle school and high school. And what they're saying, I've seen having to have that big age gap between my kids. So I love that there's grammar instruction, because that's, something I'm trying to teach on my own, like pulling up resources. So I think that's great. My last quick question is the writing curriculum. The one other critique I have now, what we do is the writing. Are we going to go back to writing like handwriting? Because I know there's been a shift when, for instance, when my older boys who are freshman and junior, they always did rough draft, next draft, handwritten. The final, what do they go, going to press, like whatever they, a cute little phrase that they use now, it's going to press, and then they type it out and maybe put a little graphic or a picture. But I'm seeing a shift, and I've heard from friends at Chestnut Wall that some of their fourth grader stuff is completely, there's no rough draft. There's like, everything is typed. The rough draft is typed, the second draft is typed, the final copy is, I haven't seen that quite as much at Linwood, but are we going to get back, because that's affecting fine motor skills and pen, like writing ability. These are little people where they're developing those skills. Is this going to be the writing mostly pen and paper?
There is, I didn't bring it with me, there's a student workbook that goes with this, and in that there are pages where they are to write the different writing that goes along. There are focus question tasks that happen throughout, which are assignments, which will all be handwritten. We'll work on, you know, what that looks like. I haven't gotten that far to think about whether or not they'll do something. Maybe their end of module task will be typed, but I don't know yet. I'm still learning the curriculum.
Okay.
But I would say at this point, there is a student workbook that comes with each module, and in that there are lines where students will be writing. So.
And I love workbooks. That sounds great too. Yeah, I just, something to keep in mind. I feel like we've seen a shift, not quite as much at Linwood, but.
Sorry to interrupt, doesn't Foundations have a handwriting component?
Yes.
So it's already.
So they
we're still continuing with
they learn handwriting in Foundations. They learn cursive in third grade in Foundations. They continue to use it a little bit through fourth and fifth. We don't, and they use cursive, actually, they're taught cursive in, they're taught keyboarding without tears in library. They're not taught cursive in library. But they are taught cursive in third grade, and they do handwriting. And in fact, one of the things we say to our kindergarten teachers is, this is the opportunity to get those letters going the right way around. I taught kindergarten for 3 years, and you've got to get those letters going the right direction and starting at the top, coming to the bottom.
I was more, they're talking, I was referring to, you know, they do
Fourth
little
grade, right.
informational pieces, paragraph level.
Yeah.
You wrote out your
Yeah.
paragraph, and then you did your next draft, and then the end, you might type it. There have been some shift in some schools. I have two friends who have fourth graders at Chestnut Wall where they typed the first, you know, I'm talking, not, the workbook's great, I think that's great, and I know we have Foundations, but that's my only recommendation, because, you know, those fine motor skills are so important. They're developing them not to do everything. Final copy, awesome, on the keyboard, but this sounds great. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
I just wanted to give a shout out to your team of teachers who just brought your, you know, your classroom experience, your curriculum leadership to this work, which I really think is going to set an exciting tone for the district and where it's going with ELA instruction. I've worked with Wit and Wisdom before, not the company, but I've worked with this curriculum and implementing in other settings. It is robust, it's exciting. We know literacy research shows us that a comprehensive, connected curriculum is what's going to help our students achieve at the highest levels. And from what I've seen, this is it. So just thank you for all the countless hours beyond your day jobs that you've put into this work. And I think it's going to benefit the entire district. Thank you.
Thank you.
What a ringing endorsement, having 100% acclaim for this program out of the rubric. One question I had when you talked about maybe for the first year or so implementing just 3 of the 4 modules, and just looking at slide 13, what has them laid out. And I was curious that module 4 in K1 and 2 is when they do the opinion writing. So is there some risk that if we just do 1, 2, and 3, that there's a cohort of students who don't see opinion writing until later? Like, is there some strategy on maybe 1, 2, and 4, or 2, 3, and 4, or how do they work together? I guess?
We will make sure, that was where I said that the curriculum teams will look at the standards and look at the modules and see what is being missed. We may go faster than we think. We're trying, you know, but we don't know. And I don't want to promise anything like that because we need to be fair to our teachers to get to know this curriculum. But we will look at it and see what would be lost if we don't do module 4 in the first year, and we can pull those into the other modules. So that's why it's a curriculum and not a program. So this is the resource, and then we're going to write our curriculum.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just, it looks really robust.
But thanks for
and
the question.
Just like, oh, it'd be a shame to miss any of them because they all look so great.
I know, don't they? I love all the books and all of them too. Anything else?
I'll
Because
just
we have
share a
secondary to tell you.
logistical
Go ahead.
piece. I'm sorry, just a logistical piece, because, so we're sharing this information with you tonight. And then in the report next week, the report on this meeting will go out at the public. And then we are anticipating asking, at our, was it our first June meeting? Our first June
13th.
meeting, June 13th, which is a little later than usual because of graduation. We will be, at that point, have on the agenda the request to adopt these materials, just to give everybody a timeline. Because I made Sandy cut a bunch of slides, and she had that on there. So thank you, Sandy, she had that. I wanted to make sure we didn't miss it.
And I would ask that if, sounds like this has been in the works or being looked at for a little while. We just had the budget presentation in the Facility and Finance Committee meeting. Is the consideration of this curriculum already part of what's in the budget that's been presented?
It is.
Okay, good.
And I'll also say that, initially we thought we were going to just pioneer this year. But there seems to be enough support, especially by the principals who have been trying to figure out how to do this. And Dr. Adelizi, all of us working together, how does it look if we pioneer? How does it look if we go all in? And the people on the team are like, we want to go all in. And of course, there's some people who feel uncomfortable with that because they don't know it and it's all new and it's hard. But I was able to find the money, and I have the money for modules 1 through 3. That's another piece of it. So next year we'll buy module 4, and then we would be able to continue with that as well.
Quick question about the professional learning piece.
Yeah.
This is going to be a learning curve because it is such a comprehensive curricular resource. Have you been provided with a plan from Great
Yep.
Minds, like what they're proposing to support our teachers?
Yep, I have a plan.
Okay. And leaders too, because they need to know what they're looking for when they're going to
Yeah.
the classrooms.
Yeah, no, we have a plan. I've been able to secure them. There's one date that we've got to figure out, but basically I've been able to secure them for the entire year next year for all the pieces that they offer. I'm like, whatever you offer, we want it. It's one of the big things that came from the team is we need the professional learning. We need that support. So we will have that.
Sorry, one more.
Yep.
Are we also looking at kind of a feedback cycle, like as we're implementing, collecting feedback and tweaking where necessary? I mean, what's the saying, adopt before you adapt, but at least we want to be collecting that data along the way.
Yes.
To see what changes can be made.
Yep, exactly. Okay. The next presentation is very short. Secondary curriculum audit and development. So we have to remember, we just finished the audit. Okay, elementary got really, yes.
I'm so sorry, but before you move on to
my
secondary,
teachers,
I want
thank
to
you.
acknowledge,
Please
thank
go
you
home.
to the teachers for coming tonight. And particularly to Erin Smith-Dels, who's trying to run out of the room. She is our lead teacher. She has been doing a phenomenal amount of work and continues to support the teachers in this process. So just wanted to say that.
Happy Teacher Appreciation Week.
That's right, happy teacher appreciation. All right, on to secondary. Sorry to interrupt. Sandy.
So I just want to remind us, I have to sort of reset this lens, that we just finished this audit. And secondary then also met in that same team that you saw on the first slide. And this is the work that they've been working on. So far, we've looked at the audit report and the recommendations, and they've also done some research and started to listen to Knowledge Matters and other articles and things like that. Middle and high school teachers have been meeting as vertical teams. The team of teachers is meeting across middle and high school, which they really are appreciating. And the teachers have started to reach out to other districts. And also, when I interviewed those 20 districts, I also asked them what was going on in secondary so we could learn about that. So we have that information. Now, this is work that is going to happen. It was recommended by the IU that we learn about priority standards and that we align to the UBD or the Understanding by Design framework. That is the plan for our development year, which is this coming year. So we will start that in the summer. We may start learning about priority standards at the end of this year, and then we'll continue through. And that will mean that, in some grade levels, teachers will look at the units that they have and we'll see, did the priority standards, do we have the right standards in the right units? Do we need to move things around? Is there anything that we can trim? Is there anything else that we can add? We want to continue to add choices for diverse texts. We will be adding for all grade levels, including K-5, a modern assessment So that will be some of the curriculum work that the elementary will have to do, as well as the secondary will have to do. So they all have to learn about the modern assessment competencies. Some, the books and identify the resources. So we'll be back to talk about that. The middle school also got going, and they decided, you heard about the misalignment between the Study Island assessment and their teaching and the lessons on Study Island, things like that. They've decided they want to do the Common Lit benchmark this year. So we're going to try that. They'll do that 3 times this year. And actually, on our next meeting, May 16th, the high school group is going to look at those benchmarks and see if they want to include those too. We don't know yet. But our high school's been very busy. And I have both Heather Pinheiro and Mr. Donaghy here tonight to talk about this, because this is pretty exciting. The high school English department is embarking on reimagining the course offerings for 11th and 12th grade. The teachers wanted to provide students more voice and choice in what they're learning and to be able to provide greater student engagement. So on the left is what is currently offered, a standard 11th and 12th grade course. 9th and 10th are not going to change. They're going to continue to have a 9th grade English and a 10th grade English. They wanted to reimagine the 11th and 12th grade. And by the way, the 11th and 12th grade ELA standards are the same. They're grouped together, 11th and 12th grade standards. The right is a list of the possible core courses that teachers will develop for the 25-26 school year. So the teachers are in the beginning stages of planning these courses and imagining what these might look like. They'll return with more details with the to present them in the 25-26 course catalog, which we do in October or in December. So it'll be in the beginning of the year. You'll start to hear about the following year. Things happen pretty fast in education. Not really fast, but ahead of time in education. So it's a really exciting time in Haverford. And I want to call up Mr. Mike Mullen, who I think you know. Yes, because he was going to share from the teacher perspective, again, what they were thinking, and he's sort of their teacher voice for us.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry. I'm wearing my jacket not because I'm in a hurry. I'm cold. This reimagining really came from my colleagues. It was not a top-down thing. We've had a lot of discussions about 11th and 12th grade English over the years about how it's become standardized. You get, if you're an 11th or a 12th grader, that's what you get, English 11 or English 12. There's really not a whole lot of choice or options out there. So one of the things that we were talking about was extending those options and those choices, give kids an opportunity to pick their path rather than for us to impose it upon them. And it allows for differentiation, it allows for choice and options and things along those lines. The other part too is that, going back over what the elementary people were talking about, that knowledge-based curriculum, this focuses that and gives it a little bit more rigor. If we design these courses around these concepts or themes, it will allow us and force us to conceptualize them in a way that we really have to put a lot of background knowledge into those before we can start teaching the classes. The third thing is that it'll just be a little bit more rigorous. It's vigor and rigor, right? Those are the rhyming words. So I'm in the middle of the second bullet. It's the tragic hero, and there are lots of tragic heroes, but I want to change it to just, there are lots of different heroes. There are romantic heroes and epic heroes, and so there might be more heroes than just the tragic ones. But just remember, it came from us, and it's an opportunity to give the kids more agency and to make it a little bit more challenging, right? You remember that thing about the right fit, right? That Goldilocks. Well, that's fine, but sometimes you need to be a little uncomfortable, right? And right, look up a little bit. So that's where we're at with this.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Do you guys want to speak? Mr. Donaghy, Ms. Pinheiro.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. And just Sandy's done a wonderful PowerPoint. This work goes on constantly. And I think we're underplaying that. We have these discussions, and there's not always agreement, okay? The teachers get along, and these elementary teachers, most enthusiastic people I've ever met in my life. But we have, like Mike's saying, tragic hero. We're going to discuss that for about 12 hours. And we're going to come back to you with a great class. One of the reasons for this change, like Mike alluded to, personal finance, drones, engineering to learn, AP African American Studies, all these classes we brought to you in the last 4 years have now made English 11 not sound that exciting, okay? And the kids know they know they have choice in other areas. But when they come to English, they have English 11 or English 12. So it's this interesting dynamic we've created. And they have, the students, is the teachers do a lot of informal surveys in their room, informal, questioning of the students. What would you like? Really, what would you like to read? Well, if you had this, I'd read it. Or if you had this, I'd probably be a little more into it. And teenagers are very honest with you. So this is where we are right now today. It might change a little bit. We're trying to decide how many choices to give the students. We're debating the analytics, the mathematics of how many choices you give someone. Because in developing these courses and looking at other similar schools, these courses are great, and we know they're going to capture all of our students. Right now, English 12, English 11, great courses, great teachers. But that 44% to 51%, that's every other kid will say they love English because we have entrepreneurship and we have biotechnology and we have anatomy and physiology and we have these exciting things. So sometimes they don't see English as exciting as it should be. So we're trying to make that match our other offerings. And then giving choice, we believe it will definitely engage reluctant readers, okay, or readers. When you get to high school, everyone knows who's in the AP classes. Everyone knows who's the smartest kid in class, okay? And then they start figuring out, I'm not as smart as that kid. Yeah, they're the readers. I'm not the readers. I'm not the person who reads. No, we all read, and one of our messages to the kids is we read every day, and we read everything. We read books, articles, podcasts, whatever, however you read, we read every day, and that's the message we're trying to bring to our new initiative. So it's a great time for the English audit. It's like the perfect time. And then we're hoping in October, November, we'll give you a little more concrete details on how it's going to work. You're good.
Can I ask a quick question about that?
Sure.
I love the idea of choice. I'm kind of used to that model with 12th grade, but not with 11th grade. So I'm just curious. So you'll still have the AP Lit, you'll still have the AP Language and Composition.
Yep.
So particularly, I guess, two questions. One, is there any thought, are you going to roll it out all together 11th and 12th, doing this choice program? Or, hey, we'll start with just giving the choice in 12th one year and the next year we'll...
We haven't completely finalized that yet. That's a great question. That's one of our discussion points. In our other areas, we have 11th and 12th graders together in pretty much every other subject area. Some of our electives are 9 through 12 or 10 through 12. So that was a lot. We 2 meetings ago with the English teachers, that was the discussion. Would they be developmentally ready, a 12th grader and 11th grader in the same room? It's worked everywhere else. But that we haven't completely finalized. And we've had a lot of discussion on, should we just give 3 choices to the 11th graders, 3 choices to 12th graders, or should we mix them? Naturally, with AP courses, you get 11th and 12th graders together. They can pick them together and handle them very well. We might bring you another AP course that we might add that will be in the English department. So, yeah, that's one of our discussion points. That's why I said, this is all in a nice, neat box, but it's a lot of discussion to try to it's 1,000 students in 2 grades. So we're trying to make sure that all 1,000 students are served properly.
Okay.
So that, yeah, that's a great question. And that was a discussion, Mike will tell you. And we've gone back and forth. But in the other subjects right now, there's 11th and 12th graders mixed, and it works. It works very well. We switched social studies a couple years ago. If you remember the U.S. history, and we had to put the 10th and 11th graders together. And we were very nervous, and it was completely fine. So we think that's the right age once, and that, like Sandy said, 9th and 10th grade, and then once you get to 11th grade. And that is the time when they really start picking their electives.
And also then, I guess it's more particularly for the 11th graders. Like I said, I'm kind of used to the choice at 12th grade. But for 11th graders who would have, let's say you do offer this choice next year, the year after, whenever, will there still be, I mean, because of the block scheduling, you're only getting English one semester. Will there still be, no matter what if you do go this route, the elective, the same standards of writing, grammar, like the same,
Absolutely.
just weaved into
Yep.
then different literature? Is that all we're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same, everything's the same. We think, we don't know the analytics on everything. We think this would give them an opportunity to, an easier route to take a 5th English class. Because we have electives in English, philosophy, creative writing, Shakespeare. We have a bunch of electives that kids who really like English take. But we're trying to get electives for kids who just like English take. So we think this might be an avenue where they will take a 5th English course.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So one of the things, and I just want to highlight Kirsten Montgomery and Laurie Grady as the real spearheads, the teachers who really spearheaded this. Kirsten Montgomery's been talking to me about this for a couple of years, and I kept saying, wait till the audit, we're going to have an audit, during the audit, that'll work. And here we are. One of the things that she especially is passionate about, and I think our teachers are passionate about, is hitting those kids, as Mr. Donaghy said, who really don't read. And they did an informal survey during a few lunches, talking about summer reading. We have a lot of kids who are not doing a lot of reading if they're not required to do it. And we want to make a change. Because maybe we can get them hooked in to reading something that they like, and then they'll find out that maybe they like reading.
I just want to say, I think curriculum development is something that takes a lot of time and energy. But as a teacher, I think this is going to be fun too. I know that there's, one of the books in 12th grade right now is Frankenstein. And so I'm assuming that's going to fit into one of these categories. But then to think about what other books could fit that category and the fun of trying to pull that together. I think not only is this a great opportunity for teachers, but then they're going to bring that enthusiasm into the class. And so I just think it's really exciting.
Yeah, we all do. Thank you.
Can I just take a step back to middle school really quickly?
Yeah.
So that work in terms of thinking about new curricular resources, that's in development, correct?
It's definitely in development.
So if we were to approve Wit and Wisdom, would that be taken into consideration in terms of vertical
Yes.
alignment?
Yes,
Okay.
they are already, we have I have at least 6th grade, I think I have 7th grade also for them to look at. They were waiting, I asked them to wait until we figured out what who goes first, right? Chicken or egg? So, but elementary is feeding into them, and elementary really needed a change. So now that they've waited and Wit and Wisdom was the choice, there's, in fact, the first book in the 6th grade curriculum of Wit and Wisdom is Bud Not Buddy, which we already read. So there may be some alignment, there may be some cherry picking, a module or something, or they may decide that they want to do that, but that is something we will definitely look at. But we wanted to do that priority standards training first, because that was something that was recommended from the IU. Okay.
I have a feeling that, Ms. Saxa, you're going to have to change your very nice audit schedule because it feels like we've leaped ahead already, right? Like the audit just got done, and it in this block of a period for the audit, we're already seeing the development, the planning, the resources, all of this coming on. So I appreciate the parallel paths that have been happening, or the anticipation of what was in the, what was going to be found in the audit. I think with all the participation and, thoughtfulness that went into it, there probably wasn't much in the audit that was a surprise, especially if you've been able to get this much underway just on the tails of that report being delivered. But look forward to this kind of accelerated pace that we're already out of the gate with.
Yeah, we're excited about it. It is faster than we thought, but I think that once people saw what was possible, they didn't want to keep doing what they've been doing. So, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, you were mentioning the audit, so I was just kind of curious how you saw the audit fitting or will fit in the value it brings to defining the curriculum and helping you. So
As far as the audit?
The audit, yeah.
I felt that it was really helpful. There were things that came out of the audit that I thought of, but I've been here since the last curriculum, and so I've watched through this, and I talk to teachers a lot, so I've tried to hear what it is that they're thinking. There were not many surprises that came out of that. Is that what you're asking me?
I was just wondering what value the audit brought, or do you see it bringing?
I think it really focused our ideas on what we need to do as next steps. It also brought through, I could not have done 38 focus groups and I could not have synthesized over 3,400 survey results. I don't have that skill set. And that was something that I've done a lot of audits here, but I have to say that was really, really helpful because we got to hear from so many stakeholders about the curriculum, and the trends really emerged. And what I appreciated from them was they brought us the trends. They didn't bring us, this outlier here and that outlier there. They brought us the trends, and then we can look at those trends and say, what will we do with that information?
Okay, it's great that it was really helpful.
Yeah, it was really helpful. It was really worth the money that you guys put towards it, and I appreciate that support. So we have more work ahead, and we have the energy. We're going to do it. I want to give you a very brief update because I'm also in charge of library, among other things. And they have just completed a bunch of work too, but we're going to start with the secondary. The librarians couldn't be here tonight, but they made a video for you, which are both very brief. Is there sound? Maybe we can go back to the beginning of that. Just a second. Well, this is Lauren Beth Senior, talking from the middle school library up in the upper right-hand corner, and she's basically telling you what's happening on this slide, she has delivered lots of lessons, over 40, designed to build context and provide enrichment. She's got library-led instruction guided by Common Core and the BCIT standards. Whoops, and that's the second one. I couldn't read that slide fast enough. They were very clever. They were able to get their two videos together into one video. No, can't do it. Okay.
Sandy, maybe we
Yeah.
could, if it doesn't work for us before we wrap up this evening, we can get someone in technology to figure it out tomorrow and at least get it to the board.
And I think that if the board plays the slideshow themselves, they'll be able to hear that the video is on there. It is just whether or not you
It's
can
a
hear it.
PDF. We have a PDF, so.
Oh, you do
we'll
have a
to get-
PDF?
yeah,
We'll get it to
we'll
you
get it to
then. We can get it to you tomorrow. So they both are saying what's happening in the middle and high school library, and there's just a lot of really great stuff going on. At the elementary, can you go to, there it is. The elementary curriculum update is important because they spent the last 2 years writing their curriculum. So they don't have a program. They went and used the standards. Is hers working? Oh, somebody's playing, okay. They reviewed and annotated changes from their previous scope and sequence. They researched lots of library curriculums from around the state. They used both the ISTE standards, the Library ASLA standards, and the PA Core ELA standards to develop a new scope and sequence from grades K to 5, encompassing 21st century learning skills and STEAM. They have a timeline by trimester on each of their units, so they know when the skills should be introduced and then revisited. They created a curriculum framework and have all those skills involved in them. And next, they'll be working to have common lessons as a bank of lessons so that if they have new librarians, they'll know sort of how do we teach these skills and these standards. So that is Terry Carrick, who is the department chair for elementary library. And you also saw on the previous slide, Keith O'Connell, who is the librarian for the high school. And what she's talking, but you can't hear.
Can I just ask a question about library? So
sure.
I recall that in elementary, it's a special.
It's a special, it's a period, yep.
For the slide on middle school.
Yep.
Is there also a designated library class, or when do the library instruction happen?
Yeah, so no, there's not a library class. The librarian goes into classrooms and teaches the library skills, research skills in the classroom if the teachers request it, or they bring their classes down into the library so that she might teach them in the library how to search for books and how to find, do research around certain topics and that kind of thing.
Okay, so it could be pushed into a social studies class.
Yep,
or
exactly.
there's a research project or an English class.
Yes, and Keith does that at the high school as well. He goes in, does, each of the grade levels does a research project, and he goes in and helps them also with research. They have, at the high school, there's a bank of, they've put all of their resources underneath Haverford's umbrella so that we're not going out and searching the thousands of things in the world, but all of the vetted sources for students to look at. So they have a very good Haverford website. Yep. Okay.
We have the sound? We might have the sound now?
Oh, you have it? Oh, whoops. No, you do it.
Dr. Rushi, Ms. Wiederman, and the Haverford Township School Board. My name is Terry Carrick, and I am the elementary librarian at Linwood. The 5 elementary librarians, Maria Hernandez, Deirdre Mulhern, Caitlin Naylor, Josephine Shoppett, and myself, have met monthly for the past 2 years, working to update, revise, and create a working library curriculum. During this process, we reviewed and annotated changes that we would like to make to our previous scope and sequence. We researched and reviewed many library curriculums that are being used throughout our state. In conjunction, we identified and reviewed the ISTE standards, the American School Library Association standards, and the PA ELA standards. In conjunction, with this information, we developed a new scope and sequence from grades K to 5 that encompasses 21st century library skills and STEAM. We designated a timeline by trimesters for when these skills should be introduced or revisited. And finally, we constructed a curriculum that incorporates the necessary skills to develop a 21st century independent library users that meet the ISTE, ASLA standards, and the state standards. Our next steps will be that we're planning on compiling lessons that we have found to be effective and placing them into a folder for future teacher librarians to use if they wish. Thank you and have a great night.
So I'm proud of the hard work and the collaboration. In your packets, you have the unit titles for each grade level. So that is in that pile of papers that you have in front of you. They also, you each have a bookmark, and that is one of the bookmarks from the middle school library contest. There's also a high school library contest for a bookmark that's going on. That I don't think that choice has occurred yet. Maybe they haven't come up with it. Oh, they did? Okay. I don't know who won either. But anyway, you have the middle school one in front of you, so now you have a new bookmark. and students were able to vote, students, administrators, everybody was able to vote on the library bookmarks. And that's something that Lauren Beth began at the middle school, I believe, and took up to the high school. Keith adopted that same thing. So they've been very busy too. So we've got lots going on with books in our district. Thank you for all of them. Okay. Amelia Payne won in the high school for the bookmark. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thanks for your support, and I'm around for questions if you'd like.
I just can't, I have to acknowledge, I know I typically do acknowledge Sandy, but I hope you have a sense of the scope and depth of work that Sandy in particular, as well as the team of teachers, administrators, lead teachers have done. But it really, it's surprising sometimes what Sandy is able to accomplish. I don't know why I'm surprised, because she continues to be able to accomplish these amazing things. And I want to acknowledge that with the board and with the public, that your ability to organize, think ahead, collate information, and bring people together has really brought us forward and continues to bring us forward. So thank you. Okay, if you can believe it, I have information items. Okay. So I will go as quickly as possible. I just want to make you aware, the AP biology book that we use, we have print copies of the book, but I'm going to pass this down for illustrative purposes. We also use a subscription to an online version of the book for students who don't want to carry the book home. The book weighs a lot. So they have the option, they can do either. Our online subscription expired. We are not ready to purchase all new print books because there are new open educational resources that we would like to evaluate, and they're not available till next year. So what we are proposing is that we take, they evaluated the fourth edition. We're currently using the third edition of this text. The teachers evaluated the fourth edition and felt like, okay, we can subscribe for 1 year to the online version of the fourth edition and still use the paper version of the third edition for 1 year. And then we will have the opportunity to evaluate the open educational resource, which we can also get in print. It's not about that. But we wanted to let kids maintain online access just because that book is really heavy and they don't read it page to page. I'm sorry, first page to the last page, So there is going to be a request at the May 16th meeting. Oh, sorry, not the May 16th, at the June 13th meeting, if you would approve adoption of the online resource for 1 year only at $6,000. So that's what that is. Are there any questions about that? Okay.
I know you had also said, and I think it's an important aspect, is that we are losing our AP biology teacher and getting somebody new. And so it's important to have consistency instead of throwing someone new into new material and new everything. So I think this is a wise way to kind of have that transitional period of time.
Exactly. And then she will be the one who is integral in making the decision about the next book that will be used for years after that. Yes. So thank you for pointing that out. Also, we have a revised flexible instructional day plan that we would like to submit to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. If you'll recall, those are the days that you're allowed to use in lieu of a snow day or something like that, an inclement weather day. It is not our intention to use that first. It is still our intention to use our inclement weather days first. If we were to find ourselves in need of a flexible instructional day, the plan that we had submitted is no longer reflective of what we can actually do here, because it was written when we had one-to-one devices. And we no longer have one-to-one devices in kindergarten or first grade, and second grade doesn't all take their one-to-one devices home. So we needed to revise the plan. We took the opportunity to look at what people are doing, what the state is requiring people to do, and what's feasible. And we rewrote the plan to say that we are going to be asynchronous, that there will be all paper pencil options in K through 2 for the work, possible combination of paper, pencil, and perhaps online options for 3rd through 12th. And we submitted new model lessons of what that would look like. We had to affirm that we would have ways for people to access the information if their own internet was down, and how we would have teachers support people throughout the day by being available via phone and checking in certain ways. So it is a revised plan. There's a deadline on this one, which is why I had to share it at this time. They open the application late, and then it's due very quickly. So it has to be turned in by June 1st, and it has to be board approved. So that will appear on May 16th. Just asking for your approval of that revised plan. And then any questions about that?
Just one quick
Yes.
question. I just think logistically, then that means flexible days can only be days that we plan for, given that you have to be able to give the hard copies to people.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, we've had some conversation about sending home some sort of just-in-case material. We do want it to be as contemporary or contemporaneous as possible with what kids are learning. But yes, we would really try and only use them when we knew it was coming, and it was like we've already been out for a bunch of days, and now we have to do this, so we could maybe get some advance notice going. Any other questions about that one? And the final one really is just plain old information. You heard us present Mr. Haran and Ms. Ford from the middle school about the Prima Lingua resource at the middle school. You will see on the May 16th agenda a request to adopt those materials so that they can offer the class beginning next year.
All right, that gets us through the agenda. There's a time for public comment if anybody has anything. There is, okay. If you could just state your name, residency in the township, and then get into it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Monet Riley, and I'm a resident of the township. This has been really great. I wanted to thank, I was hearing about the love of reading. My son had Carrie Scott in 6th grade. And when she started, we went to the class, and she was like, it's my job to make sure these kids love to read. And my son was not a big reader at that point. And now he's in 7th grade, and he has his own curated collection of books that he has bought with his own money. To where he's now getting in trouble for reading in class because he's reading so much. When he's done, he picks up his choice book, and that's what he loves to do. And it's just such an amazing change from where he started when he came into the middle school to where he is now. We are not going to, my other son's going into 6th grade, so we're going to miss the new curriculum that you all are adding. But I know we are a special needs family, and I just want to make sure, I'm hearing that this is going to be a lot of paper and pencil, and there's no online material, but making sure that the students who paper and pencil doesn't work for them are having access to the curriculum, are still being able to type, and that's not being, looked down upon, that we still have typers, we still have, text-to-speechers in the school, because this is a public school, we don't get to choose who we have here, and we take everyone, and we want to make sure that all of our students here are able to, be functioning members of society and have a right to their education as well. So we're very excited. I'm very excited to see everything, but just want to make sure that those students aren't being forgotten as we move into this new curriculum. So thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else, but last call for public comment. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for a long night of committee meetings, and for all of the staff who participated in the great content we had to review tonight. We're adjourned. Thank you.